Dear Chosen One, what I am about to reveal to you may completely change the way you view your spiritual journey. The world thinks you're just tired, overwhelmed, unstable. But only you know what you've faced in silence. Attacks that no one saw, voices that no one heard, wounds that no one understood. You survived demons that hid in smiles, in thoughts, in addictions that tried to consume you completely. You won battles that few would endure. And now, only 3% of evil still tries to remain around you, or worse, inside you. And those 3%, they are terrified of what you will do next. They hurt you, made you doubt yourself, created emotional traps to watch you implode. But every fall was a cry for rebirth. Every night of despair, a hidden portal to a new level of consciousness. The 97% of demons that tested you have already been destroyed. One by one, they fell before your faith, your resistance, and your silent decision not to give up. But what remains now is even more dangerous. Because it doesn't come from the outside. It has no name, no face. It hides inside your story, and only you can defeat it. They know this, and that's why they are afraid. Very afraid. In this video, you will understand what it means to have already won, but still be under attack. You'll discover why the next step you take could free not only your soul, but thousands who came after you. And above all, you will see what demons fear the most, your own lucidity. Because now, you're not just resisting, you are ready to command. But before we continue, I have a special request. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate notifications to continue receiving deep revelations like this. And write in the comments, I am steadfast, to declare to the universe that nothing will fragment you anymore. You've already faced almost everything that could be faced. There were emotional storms that ripped apart your peace for no reason, toxic cycles that seemed to repeat even when you tried to do everything right. Dreams interrupted by invisible forces that drained your energy night after night. But, even without fully understanding, you kept winning. One choice for light here, one conscious silence there, one firm step despite the fear. Every decision you made from pain annulled the right that many of these demons had to stay close. They had spiritual permission to test you, but they didn't count on you surviving. And more than that, they didn't count on you awakening. Most of them have already fallen. Those who acted through relationships that destroyed you emotionally, those who infiltrated the words of those who claimed to love you, those who manipulated your emotions with false promises, all of these have lost access. This is because your energy field changed. And when your vibration rises, certain entities simply can't sustain themselves around you anymore. They fall, not because you directly confronted them, but because you changed internally. This is the beauty and the mystery of spiritual warfare. You don't need to attack to win, you need to evolve. And with every step you take, those who don't vibrate at the same frequency are uprooted like dry leaves in the wind. But now you're facing something even more subtle, more silent, more deeply rooted. The 3% that remain don't shout, don't scare, don't create visible chaos. They whisper. They manifest as that persistent doubt about your worth, that tiredness that comes even after a peaceful day, that sudden urge to isolate, to be silent, to disappear. These last demons don't live outside of you. They dwell in the parts of you that you haven't illuminated yet. They feed on your hesitation, your severe self-criticism, your difficulty in receiving love without guilt. And that's why even after defeating almost everything, you still feel that something is draining your strength. It's important to understand that these last remnants are not fighting to destroy you. They are trying to keep you the same. Because if you take the next step, if you dare to break free from everything that still limits you, you won't just be free. You will be dangerous. Dangerous to the spiritual system that depends on your limitation. Because the more conscious you become, the more you break the control cycles that are keeping thousands of other beings asleep. You are a breaking point, a living threat to the hidden structure that still holds many in dormancy. That's why the demons fear not your body, nor your voice. It's your lucidity. The lucidity you carry now is like a beacon in the midst of ancient darkness. It illuminates not only the path ahead, but also exposes everything that once hid in the shadows of your unconscious. And that's why these 3% still fight with such precision. Because they know your blind spots. They were shaped from your oldest wounds, from those moments when you believed you weren't enough, when no one would come to save you, when your existence was a mistake. These thoughts, which seem to be yours, are implants. They are mental mechanisms created to keep you trapped in an inferior reality. But now, you're awake enough to stop wandering in this maze. What no one told you is that the last demons are the hardest to perceive, precisely because they don't seem like demons. They disguise themselves as exaggerated responsibility, as overly high standards that keep you always in debt with yourself, as relentless internal demands. And this makes you live in a constant feeling of inadequacy, as if you were always owing something to the world, to God, to others, even though you've done more than many would in 10 lifetimes. These mechanisms paralyze you, not because you are weak, but because you still haven't realized that you are already free. And when you understand this, there will be nothing that can stop you. That's why the demons are afraid. Not because you're at war, but because you're awakening to something infinitely more dangerous, the mastery of self. They fear your silence because in silence you hear God. They fear your solitude because in it you rebuild yourself. They fear your spiritual surrender because it dissolves old contracts. But above all, they fear your next step. Because the step you are about to take is not just another step in the journey. It is a decree to the universe. A call that reverberates across invisible planes, dissolving shackles, burning pacts, and establishing a new reign. The reign of your awakened consciousness. Dimensional. It's when the chosen one stops fighting against evil and starts to command their own reality. But for that, it's necessary to recognize that the external war was only the surface. The real battle has always been internal. What still tries to hold you today are not grand forces outside, but the seeds those forces left inside you. Old insecurities, childhood voices that told you you were too much or too little. Frustrations buried by obligations and silences. These seeds generate invisible fruits, repetitive patterns, chronic exhaustion, blocks that appear for no reason. But now, you are at a point in your journey where you can uproot all of this. What the demons fear the most is that you realize you can choose. Choose to interrupt the cycle. Choose no longer to align with memories that diminish you. Choose not to carry burdens that are not yours. They are afraid that you will discover that you are no longer bound by old spiritual contracts, because these contracts were broken when you chose to survive. Every renunciation you made of what was toxic opened a new code in the spiritual world. Every time you silenced the urge to retaliate, you advanced entire levels. But now is the time to stop surviving and start reigning. And this leap, this step, is what the last 3% are trying to prevent with everything they have left. And how do they do this? They no longer use catastrophic events or toxic, visible people. They operate through an excess of thoughts. Repetitive thoughts that keep you trapped in endless revisions of the past, in assumptions of what could have been, in fears of what will be. They trap you in the mind because they know your heart has already been consecrated to light. And if you stay too long in the mental realm, you start doubting what your spirit already knows. That's why now is the time to silence, to stop seeking answers from the outside, to close your eyes and ask, what am I still feeding within myself that allows this to remain? Because in finding that answer, you will find the key to destroy the last shackles. This is where the journey changes. Because you are no longer being attacked, you are being refined. The pressures you feel now are not punishments. They are alerts, signs that something still needs to be seen, embraced, integrated. Not so you keep fighting, but so you stop running from yourself. The last demons are fragmented parts of your story that are waiting to be rescued. They are memories you tried to forget, emotions you pushed to the depths of your soul, chapters you closed in pain but never healed. And they continue to be there, trying to express themselves, not to dominate you, but to be integrated. Because when you become whole, all that is shadow dissolves. Being whole is what they fear the most. Because a whole being no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. They don't seek validation, don't depend on others' approval, don't feed on external promises. They walk in silence, but their presence is a spiritual earthquake. And this threatens all the structures that were built to keep the chosen ones fragmented. Society, culture, even certain spiritual dogmas feed off your doubt, your guilt, your dependence on something outside of you. But when you recognize yourself as a living temple, as a direct extension of the source, these systems lose control. You no longer need intermediaries. You become one with the divine. And this makes the last 3% panic. Their panic doesn't come from your physical strength, nor your knowledge. It comes from your presence, from the frequency you began to carry, without realizing it, from the peace that arrives before you enter a place, from the clarity you offer even without opening your mouth, and most importantly, from the way you survived. You didn't just endure the pain, you transmuted it. You weren't just rejected, you became self-sufficient. You weren't just broken, you remade yourself better. And this gave you a power that no one can take away, the power to create realities. This is what is at stake now. It is no longer your personal liberation. It is the breaking of an entire system that depends on keeping beings like you in doubt, in silence, and in survival. The next step, therefore, is not just important, it is inevitable, because you've already come this far. You've awakened too much to pretend you don't know. You've seen too much to close your eyes. You've felt too much to remain silent. You are on the verge of a complete rebirth. And what awaits you on the other side is not just freedom, it is sovereignty. But this crossing requires courage, because what will be left behind are not just pains, but identities. You will have to let go of who you thought you were, to embrace who you truly are. And the last 3% will do everything to prevent this. Because when you take this step, you will no longer be just a chosen one. You will be an awakened master, and no one will be able to stop you anymore. You no longer belong to the vibration of fear, guilt, or doubt, but there are still internal memories trying to pull you back. They are old voices that say, "You can't. that it's not the right time, that it's dangerous to be so free. These voices were planted by demons in the most vulnerable moments of your life, and that's why they seem so real. But now, you need to recognize they are not yours. They were implanted to keep your light chained. And that's exactly why the remaining 3% are desperate, because you've started to question. And when a chosen one starts questioning their internal limitations, they are one step away from breaking free completely. The demons know you no longer fight as you once did, because you've already understood that the real war was never against them, but against the idea you had of yourself. And this idea was built on fear, scarcity, the denial of your true spiritual nature. They always knew who you were. From the beginning, they feared you not for what you did, but for what you could become if you discovered your real power. You were trained to forget, to diminish yourself, to adapt. But you survived. And now that you're awakening, you are about to break all manipulation codes. The war, then, is no longer between light and darkness. It is between consciousness and illusion. Consciousness frees you because it dissolves the veil. And when the veil falls, you see where the pacts were made, where unconscious alliances were established, where you accepted less than you deserved. All of this comes to light because your current light no longer allows layers of lies. It's like, by igniting your inner flame, you begin to burn everything that still vibrates in lies, in disguise, in omission. And in this sacred fire, the demons cannot resist. They don't shout. They don't beg. They simply evaporate, because they don't have enough energy to continue existing in someone who has chosen to see the whole truth. This is what your awakening does. It dissolves the false and reveals the eternal. But there is one last test, and it doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. It appears when you're almost there, when everything seems too calm, when relief finally begins to emerge. It's at this moment that the last fragment of old pain manifests. And it comes subtly in the form of sabotage, an emotional relapse, a feeling of stagnation that seems to have no reason. This is the last gatekeeper, the last mirror before ascension. And it can only be defeated with radical courage. The courage to look at the pain and not flee, to embrace what still hurts without judgment, to accept that even the broken part is also part of the sacred. It is at this moment that many get lost, because they think that feeling pain again is a sign of failure. But it's the opposite. When the pain returns, it's because it trusts that you can now heal it. The remaining 3% are wounds that no longer want to destroy you. They want to be seen, freed, reintegrated. They are aspects of you that got stuck in time, in trauma, in the deserts of the soul. And now, you have the spiritual maturity to go to them, look them in the eyes, and say, I return for me. Because you are not just the warrior who survived. You are the healer who returned to reclaim the lost pieces of yourself. This is spiritual mastery. This is the end of the war and the beginning of the reign. Reigning is not about controlling the world. It's about no longer being controlled by it. It's walking with firm steps even amidst chaos. It's listening to provocations and maintaining peace. It's being betrayed and not becoming bitter. It's being alone and still feeling fullness. When you reach this level, everything changes. Wars cease because there is no more reaction. Attacks decrease because they find no space. Demons leave because they have nothing left to feed on. And at this point, you understand that you didn't win just by resisting, but by transforming. Your victory is not over them. It's about you becoming someone they can no longer reach. And when this happens, everything around you begins to reorganize. People disappear from your life without explanation. Doors that once seemed locked open effortlessly. Time becomes your ally. Blessings that once seemed distant begin to flow. Not because you finally deserved them, but because you have finally aligned yourself. You have become the clean channel through which divine light can operate. You are no longer asking for liberation. You are liberation in human form. And that's why the last 3% are collapsing, because there is nothing more they can do to stop you. Your next step is not just a movement. It is the final activation of your destiny. Your destiny was not written to be a repetition of the past, but an expansion that breaks with everything that came before. And this expansion doesn't happen with formulas or ready-made steps. It requires presence. It demands that you are willing to see yourself completely, with all the light and everything that still pulses as shadow. It's not about perfection, but about truth. Because it is in truth that power resides. When you stop pretending that you are okay, that you've overcome, that you no longer feel, and honestly face what still hurts, you access the frequency of spiritual authenticity. And in this frequency, there is no more room for invisible parasites. They are repelled by the light of truth. These spiritual parasites, which disguise themselves as normal thoughts, ordinary feelings, harmless distractions, begin to dissolve when you sustain the light. It's not enough to have a moment of clarity. You must sustain it. Keep your vibration high, even when everything tries to pull you down. Keep choosing peace, even when anger is tempting. Stay in faith, even when everything seems meaningless. This is the real battlefield now, and those who manage to sustain this light become untouchable. That's why the spiritual world moves so much when a chosen one starts standing firm, because that's when a point of transmutation is born. From this point, you become a threat, not only to the demons that pursued you, but to an entire structure that depends on your unconsciousness to exist. You begin to disturb just by existing. Your presence activates processes in others, disturbs those still clinging to the shadows, disarms disguises that have been hiding for years. And all of this without you having to say a word. Because when a chosen one fully awakens, they carry within themselves a frequency that exposes everything that is false, everything that is small, everything that still vibrates in illusion. And this is exactly what the last 3% cannot tolerate, because this light expels them from reality. But there is a subtle trap in this process: spiritual pride. When you begin to realize your strength, an illusion of superiority can arise, an unconscious desire to distance yourself from everyone, to feel misunderstood or above others. This is also a test. Because the true master does not isolate, they offer themselves. They know who they are but don't need to prove it. They carry the sword but know when to use it and when to put it away. They don't react out of ego but move by mission. This is the final stage of ascension, overcoming not only demons and shadows, but also the vanity of having won. Because true power is silent, and it is in this silence that true reign begins. Your silence now is not empty, it is sovereignty. It's the calm of someone who knows nothing can stop them anymore. It's the confidence of someone who has already faced the worst and remains standing. It's the wisdom of someone who doesn't need to be understood, only to fulfill their role. This silence is the sound that demons fear the most, because in it is certainty. And there is no greater force than the certainty of someone who knows themselves. You've reached this point, and because of this, everything that still tries to pull you back is crumbling. Not because you are fighting, but because you are positioning yourself. What protected you before was effort. Now it's awareness, and it's this awareness that defines the new cycle of your life. In this new cycle, you no longer need to prove your strength because it is already established. You no longer need to fear setbacks because even your falls are now part of the journey. You no longer need to doubt yourself because the doubt itself dissolves before the clarity you carry. Everything that kept you bound before, expectations, guilt, emotional dependencies, fear of judgment, now becomes small. Because you've grown, and as you grow spiritually, you exit the game where demons could reach you. They may try, yes. They may throw thoughts, create situations, trigger memories. But now you are above. And what is above no longer bends to what has already been defeated. You no longer need to fight with what no longer has power over you. Just recognize your position, your evolution, your mission. The spiritual world is watching your next move. And although it may seem like nothing has changed, everything has already changed. You don't need to feel it to know it, nor understand it to trust it. Your vibration is already doing the work. Your energy field is already clearing spaces, closing cycles, redirecting the course of things. Your role now is to sustain, not to fall into old patterns, not to be distracted by illusions, not to negotiate what has already been defeated. Because what is coming is greater. And you weren't called to survive this. You were called to lead the next era. You've reached where few have reached, not because you had more luck, but because you had more faith. And this faith was not blind. It was built in pain, in doubt, in surrender. You kept going when no one understood. You chose the light when everything around you screamed darkness. And now, the entire universe is watching your next step. Not as a charge, but as an announcement. The heavens have already recognized who you are. The spiritual world has already bowed to your resistance. What's missing now is not strength, nor courage. It's acceptance. Accept that you already are. Accept that you have already won. Accept that everything that comes from here on will be created from your new consciousness. This new consciousness will not exempt you from challenges, but it will change the way you face them. You will no longer react to everything. You will discern. You will choose your battles with wisdom. You will know when to speak and when to be silent. When to act and when to simply observe. Because now, you're no longer trying to protect yourself. You're emanating protection. Your presence already creates fields of light that disarm attacks before they even begin. And this is not a gift, nor a privilege. It is the result of everything you've lived, everything you've chosen, everything you've survived. You have become the channel where heaven touches earth. And wherever you are, there will be restoration. The 3% that remained are crumbling right now. Not because you faced them directly, but because you no longer feed them. You stopped sabotaging yourself. You stopped diminishing yourself. You stopped believing the lies that were planted in your mind. And by doing this, you cut the source that kept these entities connected to your field. This is real liberation. It's the breaking of an invisible chain. It's the end of a spiritual contract. The war that seemed endless is ending, not with shouts, but with consciousness. And the most powerful victory is always the one that happens in silence. Because it transforms everything without needing to prove anything. What comes now is the reconstruction. It's the time to occupy spaces that once scared you, to inhabit your light without fear of shining too brightly, to let your truth vibrate without needing to justify it. You are not arrogant for recognizing your mission. You are not dangerous for awakening. You are not excessive for feeling so much. You are chosen, and this carries with it a call that can no longer be ignored. You've already defeated the external darkness. You've already mastered the internal portals. Now, it's time to take what has always been reserved for you: the leadership of yourself, the mastery of your field, the command of your journey. And perhaps you still feel doubts. Perhaps you question if you are ready, if this is real, if you're just deluding yourself. That's part of it too, because even doubt has a purpose: to strengthen faith. You may feel fear, but you don't need to bow to it. You may hesitate, but you don't need to stop. Just keep going, one step at a time, sustaining the light, breathing deeply, returning to the center. And each time you do this, you will be telling the universe, I am ready. Ready to live not as one who survives, but as one who governs. And those who come after you will feel the impact of what you've achieved now. You don't just carry a story, you carry a legacy, a spiritual code that was activated through your resistance, your surrender, your transformation. And this code is now available to others, because by freeing yourself, you also open the path for those who follow you. And that's what the demons didn't want: for you to get here, for you to open this door, for you to become a master. But you made it. You opened. You became. And now, there's no turning back. The next step will be taken. And this step will not be just yours. It will be ours. Because when a chosen one awakens, the frequency of the entire planet rises, and everything begins to change. Dear Chosen One, if this video touched your soul, declare it to the universe by writing in the comments, I am already free, as you affirm to the world that no one can imprison your soul. Take this moment to leave a like below, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell to continue receiving deep revelations like this. I want to deeply thank everyone who supports us through the Buy Me a Coffee link. Your support helps this message reach more lives and helps us improve the content of this channel. If you also want to support us, our link is pinned in the first comment. Also, share this video with someone who is going through the invisible war. And if you want to take an even deeper step, check out the next videos suggested on the screen or deepen your journey in the Secrets of the Chosen playlist. May your light continue to grow, and may your truth never be extinguished. Thank you for staying with us, and may God bless you.